Today I'm going to make another video about a very different video from the rest of the videos because, some people read books and study astrology, astronomy, and we should be wondering, how did rishis and wise people get that knowledge on astrology, astronomy, and other aspects of the projected reality before books existed? And so this comes to the actual true knowledge, how it's born. It is self-born. When we have cultivated ourselves and we are connected with a higher frequency through our gratitude and humility, we have access to higher knowledge, to different types of knowledge. And so today I would like to share personal insight and observation about astrology. So this is Siddha astrology, Vedic astrology. I would like to speak about the 12th house because many people kind of wonder about the meaning of the 12th house, and so I'd like to give a certain perspective on it. So I have never read any books. I knew certain astrologers personally who I used to just be friends with and sometimes share certain insights. But this is not based on any books. This is based directly on Siddha Parampara. So the meaning of the 12th house is greatly misunderstood to my mind. So people speak about the 12th house as being the house of liberation, the house of bed pleasures, they say, the house of charitable activities, but also the house of losses, the house of, restrictions, be it jail, hospital, subconscious mind also, the exit to subtler dimensions and realms. So, of course, we have to look at the 12th house from every personal horoscope point of view. And every personal horoscope is a karmic imprint. So astrology is not so much about the predictive aspect, but more so about the karmic aspect, understanding one's karmic imprints, afflictions, and the pathway to resolve these afflictions, the pathway to evolution. So definitely it's easy to predict something when you look at the imprint, at the path, because there is already, the potentiality is encoded there. So when we look at the 12th house, some people say 12th house represents feet, right? But the thing is, we don't exit this realm because 12th house also represents the exit, life, death, and the birth as well. So spiritual rebirth, spiritual liberation. Do we liberate ourselves through the feet? We exit the body. There is a potentiality to exit the body through other centers, but the actual point of exit is through the top, right? And it's not just the top. There is a science. This is a Siddha science of how to exit consciously, right? But this is not the point of the video. The point of the video is to understand the meaning of the 12th house. Very often people who have very strong 12th house experience a lot of challenges in their life because their nature is that of giving. So these people sometimes experience imbalance between give and take because they don't know how to take. Their focus is within, but their nature is abundant. They're emanating because there is no loss without really having. So when you have a strong 12th house, it could mean that you're extremely generous, that you're extremely philanthropic and charitable. it also means that on a personal level, as an individual, you may suffer a lot of encounters with indecent people who might take advantage of your generous nature, of that emanation of your unconditional approach to life. That's what brings you to liberation. You are not afraid to lose because you are the abundance within. You are just unconditionally emanating, whether your limited self wants it or not. You are just that, the emanation of that unconditional being that brings warmth, brings abundance to other people, makes them experience unconditional love through whichever means of the physical reality, because you shower on people not only love in that unconditional way, but also in a conditional way by sharing whatever you have, whatever you know, whatever you are. And because of that, you create an impact on people, an unforgettable impact. When you are making love to these people, because 12th house represents bed pleasures, you are unforgettable because you are natural self. You're not faking it. You are there fully, and you bring them in the alignment with themselves when you are with them. That's why you're unforgettable. That's why they keep on coming back to you. Because you are just your authentic self. And after having experienced different false selves, they come to you and experience the true self, and they get attached. Another point of the 12th house is one's ability to access different realms, to receive insights. But sometimes if there are negative planetary positions, it shows affliction, because there could be some occult afflictions. Depending where this 12th house is, in which sign, will represent the specifics of what I'm saying. If it's in Leo, for example, and there are certain planets there, it may mean one thing. If it's in Cancer, it can mean other thing. So again, when we look at the 12th house, it's not just the 12th house. It's not just all about liberation and knowledge. It could also mean that you have experienced a lot of trauma. And this trauma will be the pathway of liberation if you recognize it this way. Or you may go into unhealthy patterns or escapist modalities where you may lose yourself. So if you go that way, you may end up in a mental asylum. If you abuse alcohol or drugs or any other substances, you may end up being in jail, you may end up being in the hospital, and that's what 12th house represents. Again, the choices that we're going to make cannot be predicted because these are all in potentiality. You could use your trauma for self-healing and liberation. You could recognize that every trauma, every restriction is a pathway to liberation. Or you could choose to become a victim and make choices upon this victimization and end up in places which you wouldn't like to end up in. So again, or you could go into promiscuity and feel used, abused. Again, the imprint offers you different possibilities. The choice remains yours. And so when we try to predict something through the 12th house, it is not always liberation. But it always leads to liberation once we recognize the pathway. So we need to understand how we get there and what is our pathway. Sometimes, people can be banged up. They've done something, but even that will be their pathway to liberation because they will have that time to reflect, to contemplate, and to find the strength to break through these physical as well as mental limitations. But first of all, the mental conscious limitations, because when we break through the conscious limitations, we create the pathway in this physical reality to break through whatever limitations. If we have certain debilitated signs in the 12th house, it means we have weaknesses that we have to recognize. We have a pattern, and this pattern could be passed on through our ancestors, through our mothers or fathers' lines, and we are to recognize that. And if we are on a spiritual path and trying to understand our astrological imprint or chart in a proper way, we have to look at that and see. And one house does not just create an imprint. There are always aspects. So when we look at the aspects, we can understand how it's going to play out in our individual life. And then when there are transits and different planetary movements, we can see what energies are invoked in this time and how we could use these energies in the best way so that we can work on ourselves and transform our karmic imprints or find that pathway. So basically transit or the planetary transit show us different kind of openings. So we have to recognize these opportunities and use these energies or preserve certain energies if they are in lack, to find the pathway, to refine ourselves, to understand our weaknesses and strength, and to balance out our nature. Because after all, each and every science is about balance, because life is about balance, spiritual being is about, and physical being are about balance. And so the only purpose in this life is balance, which will reflect on our body as health and longevity. Thank you very much.